What's going on, everybody? It's Joe from the Acceptable Casualties. We're back for episode 4 for learning the rules of Battlegroup. Today we're going to be going over list building and some of the odds and ends, stuff that I really didn't touch on in some of the earlier videos. For those of you who are maybe picking up right here, didn't watch any of the other videos, there's 3 episodes before this that kind of touch on like combat, the basic core rules for orders, and then some terms for achieving victory in the morale system. So if you are wondering why these episodes at the end are a little bit short, go back to those. They're there for you to watch. They cover some of the other things. Also, we'll be doing one more episode after this one. It's going to be more of a visual thing, not necessarily like a podcast or talking head video that this is going to be. That'll show you guys more models on the table and then how things play out visually with a couple dice rolls. It's going to be a mock-up game, I guess is the best way to explain it. For this, like I said, this is going to be a talking head, so put it on while you're painting. If you got your cell phone in your car, plug it into the charger, let YouTube play, and then you can just listen to me talk on your ride to work, or just watch me. I mean, whatever you guys feel like doing. So just to give you guys a heads up, there's probably like a half hour, maybe a little bit less of me just talking into the camera, touching over some list building stuff and some odds and ends for those of you who are looking to actually get into Battlegroup, maybe for some other systems, or maybe you just picked up Battlegroup and you just wanted to add it to your rotation of games that you're playing. So first thing I want to touch on here for episode 4 is going to be some little odds and ends. It's going to be like special rules. So special rules for Battlegroup, there are some special rules for individual units. It's not a special rule heavy game, which is kind of nice. So there's not, each unit, might have some things that it can do, but it's like an engineering unit, that's pretty common across the board, or there's some like things like medics. It's the same army-wide across the board. So there are some special rules for that. There's also special rules that you're going to have in-game, which, is like beyond the Call of Duty test. There's like a fallback that we're going to go over in a second. There's some special rules for orders and actions on the table. And then there's also some flavor rules and special rules for each nation, so that you're going to be playing. So flavor rules for each nation, I guess we'll start on that one, because it's pretty broad. So each nation that you play, based on what stage of the war and what book that you're playing in, they're going to have some special rules that are available to each of them. Some that you can buy as upgrades when you're building lists, some that are just built into the units that you're buying. I'll use Soviets for example. So for Barbarossa, they have some command rules in the beginning of the war where their communications and their hierarchy for command, it's just all in shambles at that point. At that point in the war, so that reflects that. Whereas when you build your lists, you don't get extra bonuses to your orders pool for your officers. You roll a random die, and that's kind of what you get. For calling in mortar and artillery support for the Soviets early on, because their communications are in shambles, instead of needing a 3 for your comms checks, you're going to need like a 4. There's like penalties for it. So that's like a little flavor rule. You get in the late war, you have Ura, stall, stall, stall. I think that's in the early war as well, but those rules apply to the Soviets. It lets you move a group of units off one order, as long as they're all within like a certain proximity of the officer for that platoon. And with one order, you can move like 4 or 5 rifle platoons twice up the table, or you do the same thing with tanks. You can roll these tanks aggressively up the table into the face of the enemy and try to overwhelm them. So there's some flavor rules for that. For Americans, they have like a fire superiority rule. So, if you're trying to pin a unit with small arms fire and machine guns, it's a little bit easier for the Americans because, that's, you get in the late war, like they just, they have some absolutely amazing equipment and they have it in mass. So it's a lot easier for them to pin down units with their mass firepower. So they have a special rule for that. Germans have their own flavor. Everybody has, like, every nation that you're going to play has a little bit of flavor into it. Like even if you go like the Finns, like Finns are great fighting in the snow. They have they can automatically upgrade the ski troops for like winter war and things like that. So every nation for the most part has its own little flavor national rules to it, as well as some broader rules that kind of apply across the board. There's another 2, like I said, special rules for certain units. Certain units like engineers, they're going to have certain engineering special rules, whether it's building bridges or sweeping for minefields. Like they have their own special rules. You're going to have some scouts that have their own special rules. Certain units, that can fight behind enemy lines, they have their own special rules. So whether it's spotting for mortars. There's all different stuff that you have for individual units, but it's not like a flood of rules where you have 30 pages in the rule book to go over. It's just a couple pages. Once you know one, it plays the same pretty much across for all the countries, whether you're doing like spotters or scouts or anything like that. They're pretty generic, and you're only getting maybe one or two special rules for some of the specialist units. For officers, they get a little more because they're officers. They're able to do a little bit more on the tabletop. So like I said, it's not a ton of special rules, but there's enough there to where you're going to get a lot of variety within the units just based off of those. There's some other special rules too, like I didn't touch on it earlier, which is fall back. I should touch on this. I actually skipped over it during the firing phase, but there's a rule called fall back. I'll just go over it right now. So say you're getting lit up by the enemy and you're taking mass casualties for fire. What you could do at that point is you can fall back. So you can move back to the closest piece of cover, and you only take one casualty no matter how many shots. Say the guy dumps like 6 casualties in you, so you don't roll your saves. You just say, I'm going to fall back. So you automatically take one casualty, you automatically fall back to a piece of cover, and you're automatically pinned. So you don't have to roll morale. So that's like another little special rule to kind of help protect your platoons. Maybe if you get overextended, or if you're just in a position where you're getting absolutely smoked, like whether you're an infantry unit or I don't know if it applies to the gun teams. It might just be for infantry units, but you can mitigate the damage that you're taking at a penalty and put your guys, and you give ground obviously on that front line, and you fall back and you just stay pinned. So like there's some special rules like that throughout the book as well, that can make the experience on the table, add some more variables to it, make it a little more in depth, a little more meat to the games, by putting these rules in there. There's also special rules that you can use for winter fighting. Say you have you're doing like winter war with Finns and Russians, or maybe you're doing Ardennes, or something like that. You can use there's a couple, like 2 pages usually, of separate rules for winter fighting scenarios, city fighting scenarios. They have special rules for refugees. These are all in the core rule book, as well as some of the theater books that it applies to. So you have tons of options for special rules, but they're not all required, which is kind of nice. So you have like the national ones and the special ones that apply to units that you use throughout the games. And there's also another section of special rules there that if you want to get a little bit more out of your games, like say that maybe you're fighting winter battles, you can use some special rules from the winter section to add a little bit more flavor to your games, or you don't have to, and you just keep playing the games with the core rules, with just the core basic special rules, and you can just enjoy it that way as well. So that's the kind of thing I do like that. With Battlegroup, you have special rules that you can use, and then they also give you a side panel of a bunch of other special rules that you can kind of add to your flavor games that are right there, and they work really well with the core rule set, and they just kind of add a little bit of flavor to your battles if that's what you want to end up doing. Next thing I wanted to get into was going to be how to build the list. So for those of us that have played Flames of War, it's much different for building the list for Battlegroup compared to Flames of War. Flames of War, we have this regular, you get a sheet, you go through your book, you pick what army list that you want to play, and then you have certain boxes that you have to fill in or that you can choose from to build your army list. It's really simple, really good system, a lot of varieties how you can mix and match and put stuff together. But like I said, you're on rails, so you're kind of limited to how far you can sway from that when you're playing pickup games or even games at home for balancing purposes. Some units are in there that might not have belonged in there, but that's regardless, that's a different thing. So you have that list from Flames of War where you're kind of on the rails, and it's really good for pickup games, simplicity's sake, putting a unit together really quickly and getting it on the table and playing a game. For Battlegroup, it's a little bit different, and it's a little bit more in depth, and I think there's actually a lot more thought that goes into it for building your list, which is a double edged sword. I think I like doing it. And I think most people who play Battlegroup probably do enjoy it because there's a little more depth to the game in general. But there's a lot more thought going into it. So when you get your army list, whatever book that you're going to play, you're just given pages of equipment that fall under your HQ units, your infantry, your tanks, your artillery. Then you have your recce, you have specialists, you have support, defenses, and then there's like fire batteries for like artillery support. So you have all these things to choose from, but it's really up to you to how you want to put it together. So you can grab any of these units and you can make this list, or you can do some research and really tailor these lists to really fit like a historical battle or a custom scenario. So there's a ton of flexibility there. It just takes a little bit more work on your end. So I really like that because you can get in there, you can really balance some scenarios and games that you play against your opponent. It just takes a little bit more work, but you really can put together some really cool scenarios without having the rails of a list and just having everything open to you. So assembling your list, like I said, you're gonna choose. There's like a couple core sections. You have your HQ, you have your infantry, you have your tanks, and you have your artillery. Based off how many units you take from each of these pools, it opens up units that you can take in reconnaissance, support, and some of the like I said, the support platoon support options. You can only open those up based off what units that you take out of your core units, like I said, which are your infantry, tanks, artillery, and HQ, and that opens up the back end over there. So for your forward HQ, I think you could take like logistics and maybe support. I think are the two that you could take. So you take your forward HQ, and then you can take a logistics unit and a support unit out of those like divisional support. We'll just call it that. And then you get into infantry. Infantry opens up a lot more slots. You have the option to take 4. You have a bigger pool to choose from for your support units. Plus, on top of the infantry, when you're building your list, you take like 1 rifle platoon, and then you're going to have options to take like anti-tank guns. You'll have options to take mortars that are built into the platoon. They act as their own unit, but you can purchase them out of that platoon. So you have, like I said, the core infantry platoon that you're going to take, and then there's usually like 5 or 6 different small support options that you can take in there, where there's like heavy machine guns, like I said, mortars, anti-tank guns, like Panzerschrecks or Piats, depending on what you're playing. There's a couple like cool little options like that. You can also purchase just individual squads as well. So like say like you purchase a platoon, which is you have to take usually 1 platoon, no matter what size game you're playing. You have to take at least 1 infantry platoon. I want to make a note of that. But so if you want to, you can just take an individual squad. Say you purchase like a rifle platoon and you get your support options, and maybe you want to purchase an additional rifle squad to add in there as well. You have the option to do that. There's some options for that as well. So you have that. And the cool thing too with infantry, depending on what book you take, they have different types. You can get like armored infantry, which has different support options, different loadouts for your troops. So like guys in half tracks are going to be different than your regular foot soldier infantry. Or like for Germans, you can get the Kratschützen, which is the motorcycle troops. They have their own entry that you can take if you're going to take them as their core infantry platoon. Like I said, Volksgrenadiers. Depending on what book you play, you're going to have multiple pages of infantry choices that are loaded out differently with equipment, different options for upgrades, and then different support options within that infantry platoon, like different anti-tank guns or machine guns. They're going to have different veterancy. There's a lot of variables on that one page, so you really can really customize your force. Not just to theme it, but also how you're going to support it as well and how you're going to build it out. There's a lot of options in there for doing infantry. Same thing when you go to the tank page. Like there's usually a couple different options where you can purchase like a 3-tank platoon, which is going to be cheaper than you purchasing those tanks individually, because in some lists you can purchase tanks as individual tanks. You lose some of the special rules, like they won't have an officer or they won't be able to spot for anybody. So you lose some of that, but like I said, you can just buy maybe 1 Sherman to put in your list, opposed to paying for 3 Shermans plus the officer that comes with it and the special rules. So you have some variables that go within them. Same thing for artillery. When you're building your artillery lists, for artillery you have a certain amount of guns that you can pick that are on table, as well as maybe some off-table heavy mortars or some of the bigger guns, like from divisional support guns that you wouldn't normally see on the table. Just because you're not going to put some 150 howitzers on the table when they would be like a mile back or 2 miles back. So you have options for that in your list as well. So you have like I said, you have tons and tons of options in here. It just takes a little bit more work, for you to put a little bit of thought and put it together. because you're not just balancing points, you're also balancing what support options you're able to unlock based on the core units that you pick. Plus, like I said, it's not all laid out in front of you, so it leaves things a lot more wide open for you to do it. It just takes a little bit more work to put it together, but I think it's a little bit more rewarding too, because you can put a ton of thought into this list and you can get exactly how you want to really, really, really maximize what your plan is going to be for the game, especially if you're playing like a campaign or like a custom scenario. It's kind of cool to make your own fighting force really really gel with whatever scenario that you're going to be playing out on the table, not just like a random pickup game. Like, you can really put some cool stuff together to play for campaigns and custom games. So building a list, like I said, I love it. It's one of my favorite parts of the game, to be honest with you. Like, but then again, like that's kind of what I enjoy about wargaming is putting the list together and really putting some thought into it for pregame. So building a list, like I said, a lot more options, a little more intense than maybe some other systems, but it's like I said, it's also very, very rewarding. Another thing I wanted to go over here for the amount of units and variant size that you have on the table for platoon games and just games in general. Like I said, for those of you who haven't played before, you're going to get a lot of units on the table. Even for small platoon size games. For other stuff where you're playing like company size games, like I said, Flames of War is the best comparison that I can have for people that watch on the channel. When you play Flames of War, you get these platoons, you purchase a platoon, so you might have 5 tanks in this one platoon, but they all act together, so they're all one thing. So you play like a company size game, you might have 5 or 6 platoons on the table. But you're only activating 5 or 6 platoons on the table. For Battlegroup, each one, I like to compare the two, that 5 tank platoon for Flames of War is one entity. For Battlegroup, each one of those tanks is its own thing that you have to give an individual order to. So as you can see, the amount of activations that you have on the table and your variety of orders and how your turn can play out is much, much wider, because each individual unit you can move individually and break away from the platoon and let them do their own thing. So it opens up a ton of stuff tactically. It makes you have to manage your army a lot more, because like I said, you have, for a platoon size game, I mean, you're looking at like 15, 20 units, roughly, that you're going to be activating. Whereas if you played Flames of War, let's say, for a platoon size game, you might only have like 4 platoons on the table. So there's a lot more management to how you play the game. The model count might not look as big when you compare the two together. You're going to have a lot more models for Flames of War compared to Battlegroup. Like I'm just comparing the two right now for for comparison's sake. But what you're able to do with your models, you do a lot more with Battlegroup, because like I said, each one acts as an individual unit. So there's a lot more that you can do there. So that's something I just wanted to kind of point out for some new players that maybe haven't picked it up yet, or haven't seen a battle report, or haven't really read up much on it. Just because you're playing smaller size games and the model counts look a little bit lower for Battlegroup, or you can play company size, but like I said, we're playing platoon. Don't think that cuts back on your options. I mean, you actually have more options as far as what you can do on the tabletop, because every unit acts individually. So, like I said, if you like really micromanaging and really giving specific ideas and specific orders to individual units to kind of give your battle plans a little more depth on the tabletop, Battlegroup's awesome for that. It does that really, really well. Like, so the way the order system works in, and the amount of units that you're able to activate individually on the table, it really gels together for a really cool experience at the platoon level. Like I said, I haven't dove into company size games yet, mostly because I haven't had the time to set aside 4 or 5 hours to roll some dice in the past month. But I'm gonna give the company level size a shot too. But like I said, we're really enjoying platoon level. There's a ton of depth, a ton of variety. Even at the platoon level, it works really, really well. Another thing I want to touch in here too is some of the army books. So for Battlegroup, they have a pretty good collection right now of army books, and they have a lot of stuff coming down the chute in the next couple of months as well. I think they have Overlord coming out, and then you got Market Garden is going to be coming out I think in the fall, and they've been hinting at some stuff too for 80s Cold War book that they have been working at. So there's tons of not tons, but there's a really good variety of Army books. And the cool thing is you purchase your Army book based on the theater. So you have to get the core rule book. If you can get they have like a $25 hardback version that gives you, I think you get an SS lists in there, and then you get Canadian lists that come in the core rule book, as well as all the core rules that you're going to need. You can also buy a smaller, I think it's like a paperback version. It's like a mini rule book. I don't think you get the Army list in there, but that's only like 10 or 15 bucks. So if you don't have any interest in playing SS against Canadians, you can save yourself 10 bucks and you can get the small paper book, and then you put that 10 bucks toward getting a theater book. So that's one way to get the core rulebook. They have some older versions of rulebooks where they have Overlord, which is the D-Day invasion and fighting in France. You can get that book that has the core rules in it as well as that. They also have, I think, Battlegroup Kursk. You can pick that one up, and that was, I think, the original rule book. So you get, like, mid-war Soviets against Germans, and you have the core rules built into that. So, but those books are both out of print right now. So you might be able to find them on eBay if you really want to play that theater and get the core rule book, but you might be paying a premium for it because they're really filled with content, both of those books, and they're out of print, so they're gonna be tough to find. But so that's how you can get the core rules, do it that way. Or you can get, they have PDF versions as well through Plastic Soldier Company that you can get through there, which is kind of nice because you can get the PDF version, and I think they have an option for you to do like a combo kit. So you can buy like a Blitzkrieg or Barbarossa theater book with the PDF like core rules, and you can get all that together at a discount, which is kind of nice. But yeah, like I said, they have a lot of theater books that you can get for late war. They have a couple for early war. They have Blitzkrieg, Barbarossa. I know they just dropped Tobruk. It was like a month or two ago. So you have that one for like North Africa. I think Greece is in there as well. So they have a lot of options for the major theaters of the war right now, and they've already said they're going to continue to keep putting out these theater books. The one thing I like about the Army books is you buy the Army book, you get the Axis and Allies side, not just the main forces, but you usually get some of the smaller nations that were in the fights. They have some lists sprinkled in there as well. You get a couple of the base missions, plus you get a bunch of scenario missions and a lot of information on that. Each one comes with its own sheets for chit sets, references, all the units that are inside the book. You have like an armory page for that as well, so just the stats for that. So the Army books are really good, and they're really geared toward whatever theater that you want to play. They're awesome purchases. Like I said, I really like the 3 books that I have right now. You can get a lot of variety of gameplay just out of one book. Like I said, I just like them a lot. They're worth checking out. So like I said, the library isn't as big, but it's growing consistently. So I think probably by like next year you'll be able to get like a pretty good variety of all the major theaters that are coming out in the game. So that's kind of what I want to touch on Army books for some of you guys that maybe aren't familiar with the system or how it works. Like I said, you buy one book, you get Axis and Allies in there, you get everything themed toward that theater of battle and all the lists that go into it. So like I said, there's a lot of options in each of the books, and each of the books are really packed pretty full with content. And you get what you pay for. I think it's usually like $35 here in the States is what you're gonna pay for a book roughly. If you're here in the States, the one thing to note too, I know you can go to like the War Store. Sometimes eBay has the books in there, but the War Store usually can get them for roughly $35 a pop. And then you spend like $6 or $7 to get them shipped. So for like $40, you can get like some of the theater books, or you pay a little bit cheaper and you get some of the rule books. If you use PDFs and stuff, go to Plastic Soldier Company. They have all the books over there, so you can get the PDFs and you just pay for the download and you get it that way. I was gonna order some books through Plastic Soldier Company, but the downside is in Europe, I don't think it's an issue at all. But here in the States, I don't know if it's the same thing for sending to Australia as well, but you have to pay I think it's like £15 or like $20 to have them to ship the book from over there to here. So if you don't mind spending like $55 for the book instead of $35 or whatever the conversion rate's going to work out to be, go ahead and do it if you have a hard time finding the book. But if you want to get it and you live here in the United States and you can't find it at your local game store or maybe some places that you shop, I know the War Store usually they usually carry the rule books. So you can go there and pick it up, or if you put it in an order, you might have to wait maybe like a week or two for them to get it and do a special order and ship it to you. But like I said, you'll save like $15 on shipping. So just a little side note there for Army books for some people that are looking to purchase them online if they don't have the option to do it at a store by them. So I guess another thing too, just my overall feeling on Battlegroup. Like I said, I come from a Flames of War background when it comes to World War II gaming, and I said I really do enjoy Flames of War, especially version 3. I haven't played a ton of version 4. From what I've played, it's okay, but it's not really my cup of tea. I feel like it got away from the things that I like about not necessarily Flames of War, but just wargaming in general. The depth. That comes with it, with your options and just how the games can play. So, like when I picked up Battlegroup, I was reading a lot of people what they've been saying about it, and I decided I'd give it a try. So, the first couple of games that I've gotten into it, I've absolutely loved it. The depth of the rule system is great. The depth of the options that the rule system gives you. The rule system as itself, I think it's really easy to pick up, especially after like 2 or 3 games. You kind of get the flow of the game down. You start getting a little bit more comfortable with the rules, and it's a really, really, really good game experience, especially if you want a little bit more depth. If you don't mind doing a little bit more reference work early on, like as far as the learning curve goes. It is like it just gives you so much variety, so many options tactically on the table, as well as like list building, everything that goes with it. There's a lot of flavor in the rule set, and there's a lot of stuff to sink your teeth into. More so than I expected when I initially picked it up. I thought it was just going to be something that maybe I would play in addition to Flames of War on the side, but the more that I've played it, I'm starting to gravitate more and more toward playing Battlegroup as my primary system, and maybe doing Flames of War as my secondary system, as I get more comfortable with the Battlegroup rules, because everything about it is, I just like it a lot more. There's a little bit more chaos in the rule set as far as, like I said, the morale, the chit system. There's a lot more variables to it. Like I said, the lists itself, I like building my lists out that way. I really like how they work the theater books, and got the flavor in there. But the one thing that I really, really enjoyed about Battlegroup overall is not the I go you go system, but you're constantly engaged, because you have units in ambush, you have units that you can activate on your opponent's turn. So as the game unfolds, you're engaged in the game. Like, you're watching what your opponent does. You're waiting for maybe your opportunities to drop ambushes or do extra moves. You're not just sitting and waiting for your opponent to end their turn and then you get to go. You're from the beginning of the game to the end of the game, you're locked in, and you're really putting thought into every move that's made, whether it's yours or your opponent's. And I like that that level of engagement on the tabletop. It keeps everybody involved. And that was like, and I played a demo game, like I said, last week for some of the guys at the gaming club, and they come from. There's a lot of Flames of War players, bolt action players in our group. There's also some guys that play. That was a Chain of Command. I can't remember the name of it is, but play some other World War II games. Iron Cross was another one. They've played those games, and the one thing that they said they really, really liked about Battlegroup was, like I said, that level of engagement. We had like 6 guys at the table. Everybody had certain units to play, but everybody was engaged from the beginning of the game to the end of the game. Kind of watching how things played out, not just from a learning perspective, but from also watching for opportunities for them to activate units or put units in play that were that can be used on the opponent's turn. So I like that because it keeps everybody invested in what's going on the tabletop. People aren't just like walking away, grabbing a soda, going to talk to people at other tables for like 20 or 30 minutes and then coming back when it's their turn. You don't really have that with Battlegroup. Everybody's kind of just like zoned in on what's happening on the tabletop. And like I said, that's a testament, I think, how well the rules are written and the thought that goes into it. So like I said, if you haven't played yet, or if you're interested in playing and you know somebody who can give you a demo game just to check it out, man, give up one of your nights during the week, roll some dice and check it out, because I really do think that you'll enjoy what you get on the tabletop. It's a great game, especially, like I said, if you like getting a little more in depth with your rule sets and your options, and like to take a little bit more responsibility as far as what you get out of your gaming night when you're doing historicals for World War II. The rule set, it really is. It gives you the opportunity to make the best out of it, whether you want to play like just a quick pickup casual game, or if you really want to get in there and do something in depth. The rules really give you the options to do all that. And like I said, I have nothing bad to say about Battlegroup so far after the games I've played. Like it's been a ton of fun. It's really in tune with how I like to war game. So like I said, give it a try if you have the opportunity. Like I said, and even if you're just curious about it, you can pick up a rule book for 25 bucks, and that's going to give you the core rules and some options for lists in there. So, if you already have the models in 15 mil or 20 mil, you can get out there and you can play a game for 25 bucks. You don't really have to change anything with your model collection. You can give it a shot. Then, like I said, that rule book has enough for your rules and a couple army lists in it for late war. So, roll the dice. You might end up loving it, and it's only a $25 investment, or you might pick it up and be like, it's a pretty good rule set, but maybe it's not going to be your core one. But it was only a $25 investment, and now you got something maybe to play on other nights to kind of mix things up a little bit. So I don't know. Like I said, definitely check it out. Like I said, it's a really, really good system. If you guys got any questions about it, feel free to message me. You guys can email me too at the acceptable casualties at Gmail, and I try to stay on top of that and get back to people really quick. I try to check at least like once a day. So if you have any questions maybe about the gaming system or just like some of the stuff from the battle reports that we have posted up as well, feel free to drop me a line, and I'll try to get back to you guys and feed you guys as much information as possible. Also, if you guys want to get a little more information on the game as well, I know you can go to, if you're on Facebook, they have a really active Battlegroup community for the game as well. You can go on there, ask questions. Everybody usually gets back to you really quick. The writers and creators of the game, they're on there all the time as well, so they can give you like direct answers as far as rules go and things like that. So yeah, there's tons of avenues if you want to get the information and you're curious about playing the game. So I don't know, if you guys have liked the series, I'm going to wrap it up here. This is going to be the end of episode 4 for the talking head part of the series. If you guys have liked it, let me know, and I can do some more of these, maybe for some more in-depth videos once I get more comfortable with the game for tactics, and maybe some a little more in-depth with some of the rules. Like I said, let me know, and I'll do some more of those. If you guys got any like criticisms and stuff like that, I listen to that stuff as well too, like, 'cause that helps make the videos better, and helps kind of make the experience better for you in the long run. So don't feel like you have to pull any punches. Let me know, man. Hit me up, and then maybe I can make some changes and make things better. But yeah, this is going to be the end of the series for this. I am going to do an episode 5, but it's, like I said, it's not going to be talking head. It's going to be purely a tabletop thing where we'll get like the bird's eye view, and we'll start using models and throw some dice and kind of show you how the mechanics actually work on the table. And how that goes. Maybe I'll do a list building video just kind of dedicated to that, to how you actually build a list for Battlegroup, and I'll do that visually as well. I don't know when I'll be able to get to that one, but I can put that one in there if there's enough people that want to see it. So like I said, thanks for watching. I hope this helped out either some of the new players. Like I said, I'm learning the rules too, so this actually helps me to talk about it and get some feedback from the vets, and then hopefully this helps some of the newer players as well get comfortable, maybe some of the rules that they weren't completely sure about, maybe didn't know about it at all, and then open up some things for them as well. And then also some people that maybe are curious about getting into the game and really didn't know what it was all about. I hope this helps some of you guys out. Like I said, if you got any questions, like I said, I give you guys the resources to hit me up. I try to be as available as possible. So like, subscribe, all that jazz. Catch you guys later. See you guys next time.